Start us off, Carter.
And there we were, at the midpoint of the NFL season.
Oh, God.
What we didn't realize is the hardest battles were yet to come. But as Cam Little showed us, nothing can't be achieved if you don't believe. And you get it.
I am loving how much you are enjoying My Hero Academia.
Yes, I mean, maybe a part of it is the exact right place at the exact right time of suddenly I have a lot more time to just sit and watch a long form series. Maybe it's just because I knew deep down I would probably enjoy it if I ever got to watch it, and it was more a matter of time commitment and the bit that I don't watch anime, that I only watch like anime film and not anime series. I did for a minute because it was briefly in theaters. I thought about going to see the Chainsaw Man movie and
That
just
would have
being
been
like,
funny.
pretending like I was a long-term fan of the series and having very strong opinions about the creative choices. I heard it was great, but like a lot of people in the sort of film spheres I roll in were like, even if you don't watch the show, you should see this. It's really good. But yes, I am. I have started watching season two. I've discovered there's a new intro, and I'm kind of mad because I think the season
Yeah.
one intro was nails. Hopefully, they pivot back to that music later once we get deeper into the show.
It
Uh,
that's the thing with like anime intros because it shifts every season. It's
mm,
like My Hero has a very good amount of them are bops, but it's just like
mhm,
sometimes they don't just hit exactly the same.
right. Um, but we aren't in the Deku Explains Football podcast. We're in Don't Sleep on Football. I'm Carter.
And I'm still happy that we got you to watch like a
Yes,
very
you win. That's what you wanted. That's what you wanted with your Japanese stuff to
me
win, right?
me and Callum are going to rewatch the series to try and catch up to you now together.
Well, I will say my worry about pacing has been founded because the fuck you mean the season ends on that one like all the villains show up sequence. I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, this is like the midway point of the season. We're gonna see a lot of cool stuff. Like, I'm curious where it's over.
Yeah, no,
That's
it's
just season one.
My Hero has some of like the best and worst like pacing, but we can get into that on the Disney Desk special episode My Hero Academia edition, season 1.
Yes, me and Sydney have talked a lot about adding like a bonus episode every month, mostly to like cover news or like what we've been reading slash watching. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. Um, I will say, just my final point is: do sports still exist in their world? Like,
Yes.
I guess like once 80% of the population is capable of like punting a soccer ball into orbit, like sports kind of become a moot. Like suddenly, the stuff like Stefan Diggs can do isn't as impressive, but like
I
do
think
they still have like football and baseball and stuff?
I think it would be a discussion for if you have me and Callum. Just you could just send us a date and time when you need the episode by, and we will rant about My Hero, Naruto, One Piece.
Oh wait, I bet it's like in Twilight. Well, no, because in Twilight the vampires are secret. But the bit
It's
that everyone loves from the first Twilight is they all go out to the woods to play baseball in a storm, because it's like, well, we can't just go to the baseball field and play because people will be like, did that guy just send that ball 500 yards?
it's kind of one of those things where it's like implied that it's like, yeah, you could use like there's like quirk included leagues and quirkless leagues, like or non quirk leagues.
Oh
Like
God, like the flag foot. That's the equivalent of like now that we're adding that flag football is going to be included in the Olympics.
yeah,
It's
it's
like,
it's like
sorry, professional flag football players, we want to win.
it's
So,
like putting the American team, like the USA team, against the freaking like Ivory Coast. Like here's people that are paid billions of dollars to play this sport at a lot
or
more
even
difficult
right,
capacity,
or I'm
and
just even imagining
here's
the
some people
culture
that it's
shock of
more of like a hobby.
right. I'm even just imagining the culture shock of that Dream Team season when it's finally like, all right, the dam's broken on having professional athletes play in the Olympics. Like, that's not a penalty anymore. Okay, Sorry, Cameroonian basketball team. Magic Johnson wants a gold medal. So anyway, so week 9, as we slowly tip our way over into the halfway point of the season, we're getting into that period of. I do love that, like, as much as I love winter and like I'm a cold season person. As much as I love fall and winter, you do get into that dead zone post like whatever the major holiday is. So like once you get past New Year's and once you get past Halloween, where it's
Yeah.
like kind of tired of this,
It's like
ready for this to be over.
yeah, so it's like all right, we got Halloween, which we know my thoughts on that.
Mm,
It's like now we're in like the first, second, third, like right before Thanksgiving season where it's just kind of like it is fall, it is winter, it is confusion. Um,
right. It's darkness
but
all the time. At
yeah,
some point, you reach that pinnacle where you're like, I'm tired of there not being leaves, and I'm also tired of it being like
we're
too cold and not enough snow to justify the cold.
yeah. Although I will say it is like it's getting to be my favorite part of football season because
Mm,
people are starting to like really consider playoff pictures and stuff like that, which we'll talk about a little bit more with the trade deadline and stuff. But also
yes.
there is the what's it called? The concept of snow games being threats.
Yes.
And
At time of recording, I believe we've already had two, not like heavy snow games, obviously,
games
but
that
two
have
like very light
had
powderings.
snow show up.
Yes, exactly.
And I've been yeah, so it's like I'm kind of excited to get like that. It's seeming like it's going to be a very cold, very snowy season based off of the current trend.
Hmm.
So I'm very excited to get one last Bills absolutely just covered in snow game. Some
In
like
their
a
in old Ralph Wilson
crazy
Stadium.
Lambeau Field situation. I'm excited for
Oh
that.
yes,
I was
that
trying.
is the one.
I
Like
was gonna pitch Detroit, but I couldn't remember if they were in a dome or
no, they
not.
got a dome.
All right, yeah,
But yeah, because I'm a big autumn person, and we finally reached that like pinnacle here in the Delaware River Valley, where like the leaves are like not aesthetically pleasing anymore for the most part. So it's like, eh. But once that first snowfall lands and like all the Christmas decoration goes, I'm back in Sailor. Um, it is fun. Like that's the only advantage summer has. Where yes, you get to that point in August where you're like, I'm tired of the heat, but it's like you never get bored of just green leaves. Like it always just looks
aesthetics
nice.
it
It's
looks
it's the
good.
most aesthetically
There's
pleasing month from beginning to end.
there is I will say we like in terms of aesthetics, we are in that period of time where the trees are like half naked
Everything
and
kind of just looks
the
a little ugly.
like leaves are like clearly dead but they didn't fall like yet, but it's still like just spattered on the trees like they're not 100% bare. So
Mm,
it
yeah.
is probably the least aesthetic season outside of like right before things start budding, where it looks like every single plant has like green pimples.
Yes. Exactly. But anyway, week 9. Shall we hit the
All
highlights?
right, my highlight first.
I realized we
Greatest.
were on like 10 minutes where we hadn't actually talked about football, so we should probably
Yeah.
focus.
It's
Um,
9 minutes exactly now. Anyway,
nice.
um, new field goal record.
Yes, obviously, this as
It
the
was.
as one of the key chairmen of the Field Goal Wins Games Committee,
I
how could we
was.
not start with this?
I was waiting for it. It was my main kicker, Jake Elliott's bye week, and I was just like, I gotta go with Little. The kid hit a 70-yarder during the off season. He's a great pick. I gotta I gotta use him as my kicker for the week. And dude hits his record that week. Just saying.
Yes, it was actually a pretty exciting game in its own merits. It was a 30-29 overtime win for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Um, a madcap game. Another another classic where I'm like, I'm still not sure. I'm still pretty sure the Jacksonville Jaguars are bad,
Yeah,
but it
but
was
they didn't
yes,
like. They looked bad, but they looked good at the same time in like a weird fashion.
I think it really is like it's the reason why the analytics community just refuses to give up on Trevor Lawrence because there'll be like even in the same drive, there'll be 3 or 4 sequences where you're like, this guy looks like everything that was promised. He looks like the sort of heir apparent to the Elway Manning Luck sort of like trio of elite quarterback prospects. But then 2 plays later, he will throw the most ass cheeks interception you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, he will
But
hand it off
ultimate,
to the other team.
yes, he will basically just give up on a play. Um, and I will say, like, to sort of sum up the game, with about 16 seconds left, the Raiders decided to go for it for 2 to actually win the game. I will say, when you're 2-5, you probably should just take the tie. Like, you're not making the playoffs. Um, like, you might as
Yeah.
well take the tie. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm always saying go for the tie if it exists. But anyway, I just want to rattle off because this is really the only part of this game that really matters. And I do appreciate that in the ESPN notes for this, they acknowledge in like the play-by-play that he broke the NFL record. But let me rattle off this drive for you. So with about 30 seconds left in the second quarter, kickoff, Tuden goes for 30 yards. So they start at their own 31. Start with a 1 yard pass, an 18-yard pass, an incompletion, and with about 5 seconds left, they kick a 68-yard field goal. So ultimately, from the 30-yard line, they had to get a grand total of 19, effectively
He
not even 2 full first downs worth of yards to get into this man's
he
field goal
also
range.
made it with like room to spare when
Room
he
to
made it.
breathe.
Yeah. That wasn't like a oh no moment. It was just like, oh wow, he absolutely demolished that in the best possible way for Jacksonville.
I feel like this has been a pinnacle year for like field goal kicking discourse because the record has now been broken more time, like I think more times in just the last 5 years than had been broken like the 30 years prior. I feel like there's a lot of discourse in hand wringing about like the state of field goal kicking, especially when you put it in conjunction with the new kickoff rules because you start so much further up on touchbacks that like it means there's very little room you have to go to have a game decide. A game deciding field goal can be decided in a first down or two.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are trying to poo-poo this or like poo-poo just the rise in field goal kicking in general. And I'm like, this is still extra. Like
This
I
is
don't
how
know.
you win
This is one of those
games.
moments where this is the closest you and me will ever get to like the great home run races of like the late 90s, early 2000s with like Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa and Barry Bonds when everyone was juicing up and like it was like a mad race to see who would break the record. And I'm like, this rules. I'm sorry. And I'm not even a big field goals or special teams guy. I think this just rules that we've had such a quantum leap in field goal technology effectively that like it's not it really isn't a matter of if, it's when someone goes for the 70-yarder.
Yeah, no, you're right with that. It is a very interesting like discourse because the kicker is just like this weird spot of like a QB where they want to stay keep them protected,
Mm.
but not like a QB where they're a making nowhere close to the same amount of money and all, but also like people like QBs you don't really drop and pick up like they're candy. You do that with
Right.
kickers. There's a lot of like, we're gonna drop him. Oh, we're gonna pick him up. Oh, we're gonna drop him. Oh, this guy's not working out. So it's like such an expendable but non-expendable position.
That is such a fascinating way to word it because because now that we're reaching the midpoint of the season, a lot of people are doing their like mid-season awards. And there's been a lot of heated debates on how the phrase most valuable has completely skewed our perspective on the award season. How like, it's become such an analytical discussion of like, yeah, but like the QB affects the play more than a
Yeah,
running back or wide receiver ever will or an offensive lineman. When it's like, okay, but during those heater runs the Eagles were on, you could reasonably argue that any of the offensive linemen were more valuable than any of the individual skill players.
Yeah,
And it really
like
is. I'm just thinking about like how many games have been decided because the kicker missed an extra point or like completely botched a field goal or like, you know, I'm like ultimately there have been multiple games that where teams have just been fucked this year because their kicker got hurt and they had no choice but to keep going for it on for two.
yeah, it's kind of it's kind of weird.
Mm.
Now here's a question for you. I know probably nobody else thinks like this, but what would you consider more valuable as a player? The person who is like leading the stat line, like most receptions and stuff like that, or the person that is the most bang for your buck? Cuz like let's think about it, like you know how through the draft process,
Mm.
you first pick versus last pick get paid two drastically different amounts.
Mm.
Like for example, the 49ers before he was injured, were getting quite the bang for their buck from Brock Purdy versus, let's say, name a failed first pick or like first couple round
Uh,
picks.
Travion Walker's not that bad, but for sake of argument, Travion Walker
Yeah,
relative to like someone who was drafted in like the fourth or fifth round and who's a regular starter.
yeah, and like you have this like person like for example of like this weird third to fifth like star like Puka Nakua, who is an absolute gem for the Rams. Like he's earning his bang for his buck more than most of the receivers that were drafted before him, he says without knowing how many receivers that were drafted before him.
Mm. Yes. Well, see, and again, that's a fascinating because there's like multiple different ways you can interpret value or like and I think a part of it is we really just have to accept that these awards are more narrative in it. Again, that's why I like the Heisman because it's one, the wording is different, but it really just comes down to like it really just comes down to asking the little select committee they picked to decide this. When the story for this season is told, who do you think is like the first person you're going to bring up? And I think that just like really clears out a lot of like the hand wringing about like proportional value and bang for your buck. Because again, it's like this is a deranged example, but like, yes, was Kadarius Toney a good NFL football player? Fuck no. But in terms
Okay.
of that Kansas City Chiefs season where they beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, he made three of the most important five plays that decided the game. And you're like, well, how can you talk about the Chiefs from the season without talking
Wait,
about that?
I was way off.
Like, as weird as that sounds, like I it again, and I think that's where I'm getting what the point of this kicker conversation is, where it's like how can you look at this? How can you not look at the Jacksonville Jaguars and be like, yeah, they need what, 18 yards to score 3 points, and
Yeah.
not be, well, that just makes Cameron Little the most valuable player on their team. Like, that's a cheat code. The Bills don't have that. You know, the Ravens currently don't have. Like, how many teams can you go down and be like, well, they can't do that?
Yeah.
It's like, it's the Cowboys, it's the Jaguars, and maybe like one or two others who can say that.
All right.
And
So,
it's like, yeah, that is an absurd amount of value.
yeah. So here is I can list a couple of people that are like first wide receiver drafted out of that class, JSN.
Mm.
I would say he's very much worth it for the 20th pick.
Right. A steal, many would say.
Yeah. Followed immediately by Quentin Johnston, immediately by Zay Flowers, immediately by Jordan Addison. Solid, probably earning their buck picks. And then you get into the second round where there's like Jonathan Mingo, Jaden Reed, Rasheed Rice, Marvin Mims, where it's like, all right, we're kind of questioning if they're better or worse than that. And now we're getting into Jalen Hyatt, Tank Dell, Tillman, Michael Wilson, Josh Downs, and it's like, all right, we're really like dropping Puka lower, but his value, in my opinion, goes hot upper more.
Mm,
because it's like, all right, he was drafted, I don't know, the 20 somethingth, late teens. I'm not counting them all. Member of the wide receivers for that draft, but he's easily two, three, at least of this season. I think JSN is definitely number one, but I think the only one you can make an argument for being better than him is Zay Flowers or Jordan Addison. Everyone else, it's like, no, he's better.
right. And I think, like, honestly, like, I do like that us talking about a kicking record being broken actually does create an interesting, like, vein of conversation about just, like, how how players are used, how assets are used, and, like, the weird sort of, again, it's a weird, like, economics of the NFL, basically. It's a weird, like, it, and this is going to be a weird comparison, but it's like, okay. So, like, Sam Darnold was drafted with the third overall pick, right? And on the Jets, he was bad. He was, like,
Correct.
really, really bad. It was a mess. They didn't develop him. He started seeing ghosts, and all of his worst traits from college came out into the woodwork. He goes to the Vikings and then the Seahawks on pretty good sweetheart deals, like nice middle tier, like for the Vikings, lower tier contract for a quarterback, and then middle tier
Yeah,
contract for the Seahawks. And he's absolutely incredible. And it's like, you could still argue he would be worth the third overall pick with how he's playing in Minnesota and Seattle,
but
but he
is he
wasn't worth
worth?
that for the Jets.
Yeah, it, and one would argue because he wasn't worth that for the Jets, that lowered his cost. Obviously, does
Mm,
that make him more worth it and more
right.
of an MVP for the Seahawks, for the Vikings?
Where they get him for pennies on the dollar. Because, yeah, even if he was this good on the Jets, it's like, would you get credit for that? Weirdly, that was an interesting discussion I was hearing about, like, the Giants GM and, like, you know, why doesn't he, if he's going to get chastised for, like, all the bad picks, why doesn't he get chastised for the good picks? And it's like, yeah, well, if you draft someone third overall, you expect them to be that good. That's
Yeah,
not like
you
a
don't.
vic. It only matters if you fucked up or you fuck them up.
Yeah, I'm just throwing out some
On
thoughts for the class.
Yeah. And honestly, I like having this discussion just because it's like, honestly, it was a pretty mellow week for the NFL. A lot of, like, honestly, more frustrating games than, like,
Yeah,
hey, let's celebrate these guys' games. But the one game I feel like a fiduciary obligation to bring up is Chiefs beat the Bills. Yay. Keep in mind the yay is in lower cases to underline the lack of Zaz, it feels these days. Well, okay. Here's what I'll say, and I'll keep it brisk. I don't know if you have anything to say about this game. Fittingly, this sort of like weird, fucked up year for the Buffalo Bills is the year they finally achieve their goal of like chasing the Chiefs. Like the Chiefs this year can't run the ball and they can't stop the run, and that works completely in the Bills team, the Buffalo Bills' hands because well, they're not a particularly good run stopping team. They're good enough running the ball that they get to dictate the terms of the game. James
yeah.
Cook had a perfectly pleasant 114 yards.
I know, real
It was
casual, like.
it was because like normally when I think of him, I think of like two or three 30-yard like he saw a hole that no one else did and slips through it kind of game. But this was more of just like a workman's like I'm gonna grind this one out kind of game. Um, Josh Allen had the best completion percentage in team history of 23 of 26 for a casual 273. Honestly, it is again, it's very funny that the offensive stats for everyone are just like very good, but not like blow your pants off like we've come to expect when when the Bills are good. Honestly, the biggest thing for me is the only reason why, and again, people are poo pooing the Bills win just on the grounds of like, we've seen this song and dance before. They'll lose in the playoffs. The only reason why I'm a little more optimistic about this outcome than I've been in the past is it's the first time I've watched a Chiefs Bills game where it didn't feel like the Bills had to punch up to beat the Chiefs. Like,
Correct. I can
the
agree with
unpleasant
that.
thing the unpleasant thing people don't want to talk about is since the 13 seconds game, the last couple times we've gone against the Chiefs, it's very clear they're a much better team, and it took their mistakes to get us back in those games. 2 years ago, the 2023 season, McCole Hardman had to fumble. Or was it MVS? I can never remember. One of their 7 dozen sort of like veteran replacement veteran replacement wide receivers fumbled it into the end zone when they were about to go up by 2 scores, and that gave the Bills a chance to tie it up. And last year, it took James Cook. Like, we were about to go down by 2 scores, but then on fourth down, James Cook broke 3 tackles and dived for the pylon to keep it close. Like, this is the first time it didn't take that stuff. It felt like they were kind of dictating the terms of the game. And the only reason the Kansas City Chiefs had a shot at the end was because Matt Prater dinked like 40-yard field goal off the upright. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's the first time where I'm like, okay, you've actually beaten a team that can keep up with them and stay competitive with them in this specific matchup. God knows if they'll be able to beat anyone else, because we've had that problem throughout the year, and like the weaknesses of this team have been very well recorded. But if the goal for the season is to not get embarrassed by the Kansas City Chiefs again, at least this is the first time I felt like that's an actual possibility.
Yeah, this one, I think I think this was a very much needed win for the Bills
Hmm.
in terms of
Oh
just.
no, my microphone's been cut off.
No, I heard you came through the entire time, or not? I guess we heard your rant. I mean, your expert opinion. Can't hear you now though. Oh, movement on the desk. Anyway, we can hear you typing, Carter. So I fully believe that this was very much needed by the Bills. A, because a mid-season loss to the Chiefs for this, I not even for like, not even to like the Chiefs, but to
Hmm.
this kind of a fumble of a Chiefs of recent years. Like
Right.
the dynasty was knocked down a peg, and it wasn't, it was kicked down some stairs too. So
Right.
the Bills losing to them would have been atrocious for morale, but them winning,
That would have been a season ender right there
yeah,
if they had lost the game.
because this is. Oh no, but you wanted them to lose to the Panthers. They didn't actually lose. I was like, why did I think they lost to the Panthers? Um,
Well,
no, you
I'm
kept
stuck in a
saying you wanted
frustrating
them to,
place.
but
Yeah. We're in so deep with this season. I either need them to kind of lose out the rest of the way to burn the whole house down and start from fresh. But
because
no, see, the problem is because like so many people have like rightfully called out this administration now for like how badly they've handled the roster, that like winning a Super Bowl now, like having the Eli-esque run to win the Super Bowl would validate them. Or the thing I
Robert
always reference
Kraft
is,
built this Patriots team in a cave compared to the Bills.
oh, you're not fucking wrong. Like in terms of it is truly astonishing. Like the in terms of like coaching and like organizational competency, like the franchises that get the most out of mid players versus what we do is truly
It's
sobering.
crazy.
Because again, this Kansas City Chiefs team was not that much more talented than the Bills the last 2 times they met. Like I think
Right.
one of the frustrating parts is like, you know, the Chiefs had back-to-back Super Bowl wins and then a Super Bowl appearance, and like the rosters weren't even that good. But it really is just like great coaching, great coaching and institutional competency, and like Atmos and aura can kind of carry you through that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like the Bills don't have that. Deep down, I feel like a lot of the NFL knows the Bills are kind of a paper tiger in a lot of respects. And like the only difference between the last Super Bowl and the other two is that they finally ran into a brick wall that was a team that was infinitely more talented than them for
Yeah.
once. Like the talent level was so jarring and so overwhelming, it didn't matter if they had better coaching. Because at some point, someone, between the 3 Pro Bowl skill position players, one of them was going to get open.
Yeah.
And between the like 3 Pro Bowl pass rushers, one of them was going to get to the quarterback.
Yeah. One of them was gonna be a real dick about it, but that's beside the
Yes,
point.
exactly.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it was
yeah, it's
much
like,
needed. I think it was much needed to kind of try and heal the NFL ecosystem, because this is
hmm,
also following a Chargers win and a Broncos win, and I mean the Raiders still lost, but they're also like already out. where this keeps the Chiefs in third place. Just
It is
saying.
insane that they are still currently the betting favorites to win. Well, I think the Eagles might be in front of them now, and like maybe the Rams, but like it is insane that the Chiefs are still considered the betting favorite to get out of the AFC, even though like if the playoffs started today, they wouldn't be in.
Yeah, they have. So they have obviously. If this pace continues, they're sitting they're sitting not in first in their division. So it's like, all right, rule that out for them. And the theoretical wild card contenders at this point are like Bills, Patriots, whoever loses out of those two. I don't think we're gonna
Raven,
get
whoever loses between the Ravens Steelers.
possibly. I would put my betting odds closer to like a Jacksonville kind of winning out in a doo-doo division, being
Mm.
behind the Colts over a more balanced division and AFC North kind of situation.
A full Lightning McQueen with the exploded tire limping his way to the
Yeah,
finish line.
they're gonna show up with like half a team and six prayers, but they also would have to beat like the Chargers and Broncos because those are both very hot contenders. But just
Right.
throwing that out there, I think the Bills winning is just a nice little extra slice of humble pie for the Chiefs,
Mhm.
especially.
Because again, coming into this game, the Chiefs were the hotness. People are like, "Oh, they're back. Everything's been fixed." And it's like, okay, but there's still talent deficiencies here.
Yeah,
Like, okay, the
and
passing offense is everything we've wanted to be, but they still can't run the ball. The Spags, Spags has been a great coach for this defense, but it's like, all right, a lot of the All-Pro talent that has like basically won them the Super Bowls isn't there anymore. Like, there's holes here. I think it is just the frustrating space of like there really is no infallible team
yeah,
in the AFC anymore.
especially because their last two games was against Washington, which was kind of a blowout, and the Raiders,
And the
which
Raiders,
was
which was the most
definitely a
uncompetitive
blowout.
game of this season.
Yeah,
Yeah, looking at I mean, even looking at the Chiefs' schedule, like, and obviously the Bills and the Chiefs are in an interesting spot because both of them are looking up and kind of need to be schedule watching to figure this out. The advantage the Chiefs have is one, they play the Raiders again. They still get
yeah,
the Broncos twice. They get the Cowboys and the Titans. So those are 5 games where they probably should be the favorites. I think they have a bye and then they play the Broncos. I think that's going to be a real pace setter for the season because at worst they have to split with the Broncos at worst.
yeah.
I'm kind of losing faith in the Broncos fast, to be perfectly honest with you, between injuries and seeing too many Bo Nix highlights now. Um, and
I think
excuse me. Uh,
I don't. I think it's more of a pace kind of thing because,
mm,
like, yes, I could see them going 1-1 with each other, but also the Broncos have the Raiders twice, Jacksonville, and the Commanders, which are quickly falling apart.
right.
So,
Um, Completely unrelated. Governor floats Arrowhead retractable roof for the Chiefs. Fuck that. Like,
no,
and a part of it's because it reminds me of the Bills Stadium discussion. I really don't like how the new Bills Stadium looked. It's too modern. It's too like it looks like a soccer field in Canada, and like there's something about these old NFL stadiums that are just like so open physically. Like they're more ovals than circles, half circles. So
yeah,
like I don't know. There's just something so majestic about how we used to design stadiums. Like, and again,
it.
I'm not like an anti-modernist architecture
No,
guy.
I
Like,
am.
I'm a dweeb
It
about
is.
architecture, but I'm not one of those snobs. But like, I just,
It is
especially for
straight
these
up.
like old guard teams, it feels gross to
It
like
is
compress
like.
them.
It's like straight up like the ruining of like how McDonald's and Pizza Hut used to look for these generic buildings so they could sell it if the business doesn't work. Where they won't do that with the stadium, but they want them all to be so like basic and generic so they can have all sorts of events and stuff,
Right.
and it's
But see,
like,
that doesn't make sense. Like, that's the kicker, though. There's no real justification for that. Like, unless you're pivoting to a dome, which it's like,
yeah,
all right, well then you can have
you
more
know who does it
concerts.
well?
But like,
You know who does it well? Raymond James Stadium, the giant pirate ship in the back,
right, like,
and
yeah, that's kitsch. And you know what kitsch is? Fun.
yeah,
None of these
and
stadiums are fun anymore.
the WWE, when they had WrestleMania there, what did they do? They incorporated that into the main stage area and stuff. They kept that shit going.
Right. Right. And like also a part of it is because these billionaires all pull from like the same or three or four references because they want like they don't want something that's like iconic. They want something that's flashy because they want to like brag to their other billionaire friends that they have all the bells and whistles. And then it's like, well, it just feels shallow and soulless. Like all the talk about that new Viking stadium, I look at it and I don't feel anything. I look at that like Chargers stadium, I don't feel anything. It's just like this is a place where sporting events happen. It's not special. You could blow this up and build a new one right next to it, and I wouldn't feel anything. Like, and oh god, and like, although I guess the counter to that is like the absolute absurdity of the Yankees blowing up the house that Ruth built and replacing it with a like one for one carbon copy with new amenities.
Mm-hmm.
But I still can't believe they did. It's just so weird. Why would you make it exactly the same?
I don't
I
know.
don't know. But we're getting off topic here. The don't sleep on game results. I have one of the more infuriating results of the NFL season
Absolutely,
on my docket.
I
The
I fully
the
agree.
Carolina Panthers beat the Green Bay Packers 16-13. Where do you even begin? Okay, here's the thing. I'll just get my little rant about the Packers sort of out of the way. And it's like, again, they have the highest. They are one of those teams that has a super high ceiling and a super low floor, and like can beat anyone but can also lose to anyone in this weird year where there's like a lot of parity and like a lot of freak
It's
results are.
yeah,
But here's the difference between them and like some of the other teams who feel that way this year. Like when Kansas City loses an inexplicable game to the Jacksonville Jaguars, or like the Philadelphia Eagles like fuck around and like lose a game against the Giants, it's like,
yeah,
well, I've
that
seen
shit
those two
happened.
teams win a Super Bowl. Like I've seen those two teams fuck around for huge chunks of the season and then win a playoff game. I don't doubt that like when the chips are on the table, they can probably figure it out. Or if they don't, they'll figure out what went wrong and fix it. The Green Bay Packers don't get that benefit of the doubt. Like I've
Yeah,
not seen this version of the team win enough playoff games, have enough like success long term for me to really give them any faith like that.
no, I can agree to that. This, I would say, is their most upsetting loss, even though they've only had two losses and a tie at this point. But
Right.
it wasn't it wasn't like a pretty loss either, where it's like, oh, for example, the tie with the Cowboys, 40-40. It's like, yes, that is embarrassing for your defense. However, your offense put up 40.
It did
This is
exactly what it was supposed to do.
this is like 16-13, where I'm of the opinion where if you are held under 14 points, you can either blame your offense or the other team's defense, depending on how the game goes. And then the inverse of if you score like or if you're scored against for more than, I would say, 28, 27, 28, you can blame your defense slash their offense.
Mm.
And like a 16-13 loss where it's just like, this is kind of a both sides of the ball, and we are seeing these crazy results from the Panthers. Nobody can deny that.
Right.
Apparently, Rico Dowell is their like their coming of Christ or something like that.
He has some kind of warlock powers. But see, here's the thing. I don't even think it's like a testament to the Panthers defense, which outside
It
of that
wasn't.
Bills game has been pretty consistent because they got into the red zone for, I believe, 3 times, or at least like the 25-yard line.
Yeah.
They get into the red zone on the first drive, they fumble it away. They get into the red zone in the third quarter, they bonk a field goal. They
Uh,
get into the red zone. Basically, the game, like a game deciding, it's 13-6. They need this. It's fourth, and I believe it is 4th and 8 on the 13. Jordan Love doodles around for like 5 seconds, and then decides to throw across the body. It should have been the saddest part is it should have been a 105-yard interception
Yeah.
return for a touchdown. And the Panthers guy, I think, just timed his jump wrong. I don't even think he needed to jump, but I think he was under the impression he needed to jump to catch the ball and then donked it off his hands.
Yeah, it
Um,
was a little bit clumsy, but it's like once again, it's like this is the Panthers, America's
and you're supposed to be a Super Bowl favorite.
donkey
And
donkey pile of trash team for the last like pretty much since the Lions decided they wanted to be good.
yes, like they have replaced, yeah, exactly. They've replaced they've replaced the Lions as like the symbol of NFL like franchise incompetency. Like this should not and even though they are better this year, like if you are a team who is serious about winning the Super Bowl, like you just can't have that. Like you have to play better than this. Like, and it's so hard to pinpoint. I think a part of the problem is Tucker Kraft unfortunately went out halfway through this game with an ACL tear. He will be out for
That
the season.
yeah,
And you could just feel like whatever offensive identity they had just completely go up in smoke. Because, like, okay, what else can we do? Well, we can kind of run the ball, but not well enough that we can make it like, you know, it can be our identity. We're okay passing the ball, but like, we're not really scheming. Again, it's like, again, it's the problem with the everyone eats mantra is like, well, you need one guy who's slightly better than everyone else, and he's not here because he just tore his ACL. Like,
yeah,
truly, like, it felt like a team that was discombobulated and thought it was going to win just on, like, spreadsheet alone.
yeah. No, Tucker Kraft is also just super good and is a tough loss of a player. Alrighty,
Like, my stock on them is in the ground right now, even though they technically, at this point, are still the number one seed in the conference. The
yeah. So
your game.
my game is a little bit different. Uh, L.A. Chargers. See, actually, did the Rams play this week? The Rams didn't even play. So
Did they?
what? No. Oh no, wait, they did. They beat the Saints, which
Oh, right.
nobody
And
would.
Tyler Shuck, we didn't even, not even interesting enough to bring up. Tyler Shuck had his first game, looked absolutely butt cheeks awful, and you're like, why did you draft him 40th? You were probably gonna draft a quarterback this year.
Yeah, but
You knew going into the season you were gonna have to do that.
Chargers Tennessee, 27-20. It was like a beacon of hope for the Titans, where their defense was showing up left and right, and the Chargers, like Justin Herbert specifically, just was a mess.
You're especially early in this game. You were absolutely right. I believe the first touchdown of the game was a 2-play, 24 interception return for a touchdown.
Correct.
Like it did have the feeling because again, it was one of the games like the commentators are clowning on of like, yeah, we're here because we're contractually obligated to do this game, haha. And even just for a moment, you do have that feeling of like, they're not they're not gonna are they is this gonna be the weird score of the one of the weird scores of the year where the Titans sneak one at the 11th hour? Um, Again, for the Titans, it is kind of like the ideal scenario you want of like you are going up against a team way above your weight class,
And
and
you're throwing some good haymakers.
right, you don't lose because you're like
You
like unprepared. You don't lose because you're like complete boobs. You lose because they just have more talent than you.
Yeah, they did. They looked rather confident. Um,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but yeah, they looked rather confident compared to the rest of their season to this point. And like, sure, it is like it's still another loss, but it's not like getting blown out by the Texans. It's not. Well, I guess it could now be equated to getting blown out by the Colts because apparently they were just America's team.
Yes. Well, we will get to them in a minute, but um, yeah, honestly, they even had a chance. They kick a field goal to go down 27-20, and the Chargers go on a 10-play, 4-minute drive to end the game. That's at least you still have a chance to win. On the note of the Chargers, though, I need to stop talking about this team because I'm pretty sure I curse them every time I'm like, they're back. This is it. Joe Alt left the game with a knee injury. He is most likely going to be out for the year. And like, this is, despite the results, this is an incredibly optimistic game for the Titans and not an optimistic game for the Chargers. Because again, I question the ceiling of this. And like, that's not like a ding on how they built the roster. You don't build a roster with the idea of like, hey, are we going to be ready if our starting two tackles both get season-ending injuries?
And the answer is probably not.
Probably not,
Uh,
but we got to at least try because we have a division lead. Or, well, we have a lead
Second
over the
place in the division.
Chiefs anyway.
All right, so
Right.
they have
Fucking
still to
Broncos, man.
go. Steelers, who, all right, they have T.J. Watt with a solid pass rush. Jaguars, I don't know how I feel about their pass rush. Raiders, they have Max Crosby and the other guys. Eagles in the what is that, week 18 or something, like not 18, like
Mm.
13, where they're playing Monday night and it's going to be Monsters Inc. themed and streamed on
Wait, we're doing
Disney.
another one of
We're
those?
doing another one. I
Oh,
It's gonna be Monsters Inc. themed and it's going to be
fun.
streamed on Disney Plus, and I'm excited because it looks so stupid, and I think we should go back to making it like the European games or like these real dog shit games where it's like these two aren't contenders. Like,
I love the
give me
idea
that
that
for
because the
that
American mind can't,
Jets Browns game or whatever.
and
Uh,
it's Luca, it's all fish
yeah,
people. Um,
you
I do
see,
love the idea that the hamburger soaked drunk American mind can't handle the concept of Europe. So instead of showing the stadium, we have to show like Toy Story.
yeah, like I think that's funny. But anyway, Eagles have a solid pass rush. Chargers or the Chiefs have decent pass rush. Texans have actually a really good pass rush. It's going to be a rough couple of. It's going to be a rough ending to this season for them. Just pass rush
Mm.
and because their tackles phenomenal. Joe Alt might be like the next like Lane Johnson, Penny Sewell. Um, I would say we can see his name being speculated of like the same level in the next few years, depending how this injury heals up and stuff. But losing two studs like that and kind of are on a little bit of a weird sense,
Yes.
you're gonna have a bad time.
Yes, I do believe they traded for a new offensive tackle. I'm going through, man, there really were a lot of trades. I do believe they said this was like the third most, somewhere in the third or fourth most trades ever done in a single trade deadline. Yes, they traded for Trevor Penning to add some depth
Okay.
from the Saints. It's something. Again, you just got to get depth. But anyway, shall we go into the lows because that's where some of the more interesting discussions are going to be held for this specific week.
Yeah.
Cincinnati has the number one offense, but the 32nd defense, and like in a very literal sense. Um, the Cincinnati Bengals lose to the Chicago Bears by a score of 47-42. It was a game that it's fascinating because it was a game that for a while the Bengals had no business winning. I believe, and I'm going through like how it all went down again. At one point, Chicago was up 41-27, uh, and it was a combination of a four-play, 55-yard touchdown drive, a actually recovering the onside kick to. So okay. Let me break it down for you. So with about 2 minutes left in the game, the Bengals go for a scoring drive, get the touchdown.
Correct.
Then they go, so 41-35. So it's like, well, the onside kick never works, so this game is effectively over. They actually get the fucking onside kick. They end up, it gets botched by the Bears. It looks like it's going to be a classic Bears calamity game as Joe Flacco goes on a heater to take a 1 point lead at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So with 54 seconds left, the Chicago Bears are down by one. They are at their own 28. 58-yard touchdown to Colston Loveland to take the lead. Bengals throw an interception on the next drive. And I do want to give my flowers to Joe Flacco, who set a new personal high for passing yards, 470.
Yeah.
That is like,
That's
what is it? So
crazy.
like that is over 10% of like if a quote unquote really good quarterback season's 4,000 yards,
That's 10.
in one game you are already over 10% of the way there.
Yes.
4 touchdowns. Kept them in a game they had no business being in because they were completely, by any reasonable metric. Like if the Bears lost this, it would have been one of those, like, statistically speaking, this has only happened 2 other times in the 100-year history of the NFL kind of games.
Yeah.
And like we talked a lot last week about like the different kinds of bad defenses we have in terms of like a defense that is badly coached, badly prepared to answer what they're seeing from the offense, where they don't know where to go in coverage, they don't know how to pass off zone coverages,
And
they don't know
then
how to
there's
handle
the
motion.
Bengals.
Yes, and then there's the Bengals, because this 58-yard touchdown is what I mean by sometimes it really is just a talent issue. Because why in the fuck is it? Because you have to, like, at some point, no level of coaching can get you to fix this in your brain. That when someone is throwing a 20-yard pass to a tight end with only 17 seconds left and they're out of timeouts, you are not trying to hit stick him. You are not trying to force a fumble or an incomplete pass. You are literally you have to go at his waist, take him down, and force the field goal.
And hope that Santos just misses. But no.
Right, because at the end of the day, you make that tackle, it's like a 50-ish yard field goal. Not the best odds, but better odds than most you would expect in this situation.
50-ish yards, that's like, I would say 40 and under is almost a guarantee at this point. 50s and higher is like, it goes from like a 90% chance of success to like I would say a 60, where it's like, right, yeah, I bet they'd still make it. However, no longer as much of a guarantee. But
right, this is more egregious. This is even more egregious than the miracle in the Meadowlands. And yeah, granted, that would have ended the game. But like that guy just he didn't factor in Diggs jumping. He completely whiffed on the tackle. This was, you had your body on him, but again, you're trying to hit him right where the ball is. Instead, he just ricochets off your body and goes for 36 yards of yak. If he had just tackled him there, it would have been a 22-yard pass. They would have been, 22. I'm doing the math right now. Sorry to bore our audience. But they would have been at about the Cincinnati 40, around the Cincinnati 40-yard line. And they absolutely, at best, they get a chance to spike the ball and go for the field goal.
Yeah.
And it would have been what? That would have been about a 50-yard field goal. And again, considering you were statistically out of this game at the 2-minute warning, those are decent enough odds. Truly unacceptable, like kind of a microcosm of everything wrong with this Bengals
Santos
defense.
did already miss a kick that point at the game, so he wasn't like 100%.
Exactly. I don't think there'll be a game that is more fitting metaphor for this specific kind of bummer era for the Cincinnati Bengals than this game, where your offense does everything in its power to keep you in this game. It keeps you in this game when you mathematically should not be in this game. And yet, not only does your defense...
Old man Joe Flacco said, when you need me most, look to the west. And he comes in riding a fucking white horse in his old man look. And
I thought you were going to do a One Piece reference.
No, it's a Lord of the Rings one.
Well, that also works.
But yeah, he shows up and he's just like, I'm here. I'm going to put up this borderline career game. And it's like, yes, he did get 2 interceptions. He threw for
I'll give him a free pass on that
yards.
Last one. That was just desperation.
He was closer to 500
at some point,
than 400.
Again, this is Jameis Winston rules, where sometimes if you go for that many yards, I'm willing to excuse a number of interceptions because you're just keeping the team in the game.
Yeah. And
Against an offense, and more importantly, like the Bears' offense has not necessarily cloaked itself in glory the last couple weeks. And you let Caleb go for 3 touchdowns.
yeah,
Um, this
all right,
Monungai fellow, who what a classic. I've never, it's bad when I haven't heard of the guy.
but
Goes for what is it,
170,
120, 76
176.
yards.
Yes.
Christ on crackers.
Here's a stat line that literally annoyed me so much. Read me their QB or wide receiver 1 or 2, whatever, Rome Odunze's stat line.
Let me pull up the box score for our listening audience. He was 3 targets, 0 catches.
Yep. There's
Caleb Williams had 2 catches and a touchdown, keep in mind.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, Ben Johnson decided the Bengals game was when he was going to pull out his bag of tricks.
Yeah. Like, I played against Nick in fantasy, who had Rome Odunze playing, and I was legitimately pissed off for him, where he produced no points whatsoever. And they scored 47, and he's wide receiver 1 or 2, I think. And
You know
he
what it is?
scored
It's that the Bears
0
haven't
points.
comparing this to the Lions' offense of the last couple years. It is the frustration of having like a very high-profile offense with a lot of talented players, but they haven't decided who their Amon-Ra St. Brown is yet. So like you are kind of just guessing like who's going to get the yards this time around. Because like it can be a crapshoot at Jameson Williams or Sam Laporta, or like is Gibbs going to be very involved in the pass offense today? But like Amon-Ra is going to get his 7 to 10. Like that's kind of like the built-in sort of like, well, these are just scripted into the game. These are must-do plays. They haven't figured that out yet, which makes the Bears offense feel worse than it actually is because it doesn't have necessarily the sexiest stat lines to that end. I do want to, like, as we keep going, I do, and maybe I'll save it for, like, when we're talking our midseason awards. I really do think Caleb has kind of become one of my darlings because, again, his numbers haven't been as, like, I feel like he's getting underrated in his quarterback class because Daniels blew up right away, and, obviously May is on a heater this year and might get the MVP, but, like, some of the throws Caleb was making this year, I'm like, oh, right, that's why he was the first overall pick. Like, right, this is why he was slightly evaluated higher than the other 2 guys.
He's holding his own enough to be like, it's like, I would say it's like, yeah, I can see why you were 1.
Mm-hmm. But yes, and our other low light for the week. Oh no, it's Dimes a Dinkus again. It's funny. If this show was like 10% more watched, I would be praised as a prophet for saying there is an off chance that the Pittsburgh Steelers just have one great defensive game in them, just one really good
showed up when
pull out all the stops, do one like scheme up a great system and like really get under the Colts skin. The Pittsburgh Steelers win 27-20. I believe the final turnover total was 6 total turnovers.
Yep.
Daniel Jones threw 3 interceptions, was sacked 5 times, and fumbled it twice. Josh Downs also fumbled once. And here's what I'll say: I'm not overly worried about this game.
Like, they still scored 20 despite getting that bullied.
Yes.
And the Steelers got 27, so it's like, yeah, their defense needed a little extra something. But I wouldn't say I'm worried about the Colts overall, especially because I'm still looking at the Steelers schedule. Like they've held up against some pretty solid teams, like a more healthy Chargers. They beat one of the better teams of the league, Broncos. Kind of handed asses to the terrible team, so it's like, all right, I could see this being considered a fluke, if you will, or maybe just a one-off.
Right, because what's funny is going back and watching this game, it really felt like the Colts were going to run away with this at the start. Like,
they had a hot
the
start.
literal first 2 drives were 3 and out by the Steelers, and then again, it's everything we've seen from the Colts this year: a methodical 13-play drive where they just march the ball downfield and score, and then you're like. And then the Steelers go 3 and out again, and you're like, all right, they got this. It's going to be one of those days. And then Josh Downs muffs the punt. And it does feel like that kind of just set the tone for the entire it just set the tone for the entire day.
Yeah.
Whereas like everything that could possibly go wrong for the Indianapolis Colts went wrong, and yet they were never more than like 2 scores out of the game for the most part. Like again, there were multiple times where you're just kind of waiting for the Colts to like squeak this one out and just be like, "Oh, that was a weird one," but like I guess it's good they persevered through chaos,
I
and then they just didn't.
I think if this game, excuse me, went one more quarter, the Colts would have brought it back to like a
Mm-hmm.
very small lead because they were kind of bringing it back at the end. Um, but yeah, no, it's yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
think it's. I'm
honestly it's
not too
more
worried.
I'm a little I'm a little more worried that Pittsburgh got 6 turnovers and only got 27 points. What is that off of?
That
How many points is that
seems.
off turnover? That does feel
Um,
low.
that's 4 points per turnover.
Yeah, I kind of need to see a little more than that. Like,
Yeah,
again, there have been, like, yeah, I don't know. This will just be remembered as, I do think this is going to be remembered as one of those games where it's like, sometimes this is a stupid sport where people, like, kind of, like, kind of don't bring their A game and the ball's shaped weird and, like, weird things happen and, like, maybe we can just forget this game ever happened when the story of the season's written.
hmm
Um, and then like 2 lowlights, and well, like I don't think it's worth spending too much time on either of these individual games, but Daniels and Stroud injuries kind of cap off season for Hells for both teams.
that it's well, Stroud got his brain rattled, so he has potential to be back. Fingers crossed.
Yes,
I
his
don't.
season might not be over
I don't.
if
I
the
don't think
opportunity
his
arises.
season is over with a concussion, but all right. Here's the argument. They're currently third in their division, and they have I would say a decent, like I would say a solid 50-50 rest of the season. Do you want to save Stroud and let him heal up, or do you want to try and push it to get that wild card spot? Because they're kind of in there.
Ooh, that's tough.
I
Like again, well, give your opinion.
All right. So they barely lost to the Broncos. Field goals win games. Um, the next, what do you think? 3 games is a solid threshold for like concussion protocol before I would say call it. Is Jaguars, Titans, Bills. I think that's 3 very different caliber teams. You go for the baby bear first, and then the low, and then the high. I think it has potential to like bounce back, but you can also take your time with this one.
Mhm.
You don't have to be praying that his pre-concussion score was like a 3, and he just did not have to get lower than that.
Right.
But Daniels,
Yeah, I guess it's yeah, it's okay. So the Broncos played the Texans. We should probably explain the actual game. It did kind of feel like the Texans were largely in control of this game, but C.J. Stroud runs, slides, and gets a late hit, strikingly similar to what happened to Trevor Lawrence last season.
that was way grosser in my opinion. But go continue.
But similar, yeah, it's similar setup. But anyway, and the point kind of, and it is kind of frustrating because this game would have put them at 4-4. It would have gotten them back to an even record. It would have felt like there was some momentum to at least get to the wild card, and it presents and fittingly, and I know it's so gross to be thinking about it in mercenary terms when someone actually had a pretty serious injury, but like these are kind of the 3 games you really would have wanted CJ Stroud for if you were making a serious run. And it
Yeah,
becomes a question of can you, in good conscience, put him in the game? Like if he passes concussion test, he passes concussion test, and that's that. But
that's
like,
yeah,
as we've known in this sport, that isn't always the whole story, and it kind of just becomes a moral quandary of like, you can put him in and risk it, or you can keep him out. And yeah, Davis Mills did everything he could in this game to lose it. Um,
yeah. I
but like, he just was. And again, it's a reminder that like there is a finite amount of good backup quarterbacks in the league, and Davis Mills
Yes.
is closer to the bad end than the good end. And
Yeah.
it's like,
I think.
because if you lose the next couple games, the season's over. Like, I don't think you.
Mhm.
These are the game you have to get at least one or two of these
Yeah.
games.
You.
But like,
I would say of the next three, getting one that isn't the Titans
hmm,
is solid. But I would be more worried about the three games and starting with the Bills of Bills, Colts, Chiefs. I think that's where you want C.J. Stroud more. So if you bench him for Jags and Titans, but he's healthy for Bills, Colts, Chiefs, I would say it's not the best trade in the world, but it's because it's not like, but it's like easier wins than for the first two as opposed to the following three that you can kind of get away
right,
with Davis Mills, and then you have Cardinals, Raiders, and then like maybe go 1-1 there.
yeah,
A falling apart Chargers, and then the last week is a Colts. But if they're going to continue this reign of terror, that might be a free win, and that's I would say makes the Jaguars more nervous because if you
yeah, yeah.
like think about it, like the starters of the Texans versus backups of the Colts, I feel like is pretty one sided.
Mhm.
And if they're in that playoff picture with how they're like how 50-50 the rest of the season for Texans Jaguars games looks of where I think they should go or like which way they would go, it's going to be a little bit more sketchy.
Yeah, it's just a bummer because it actually did kind of feel like the team, like
They
again, the
did
team
fall
still had
apart.
flaws, but at least it was like they're reaching that point where, like, the talent that is there was overcoming, much like last season. It's like, all right, but Stroud is reminding us why he's here, and like the talent that's there is reminding us that it's there.
Yeah.
And like the defense, in
Their
terms of like,
defense is
in terms of
still good.
yeah, in terms of halves of the field that I try, like each team, talking about their specific units that I trust the most. The Texans defense is like probably top 10 in terms of the NFL of like, I
I
just
would
trust you guys to never have a stinker, always show up, and to be like a reliable source of success for your team.
yeah, no, they have such good talent on that side of the ball that like I'm not saying they're going to give up like they're not going to give up any points, but like they can at least hold their own against some of the stronger offenses like they did with like they demolished the Ravens, but they like lost like they lost to the Seahawks, but they held them to 27. So they
Right.
they lost to the
It,
Rams, but they held them to 14.
exactly. Like, yeah, I guess yeah, and what we mean by that is just like you are in turn because every unit has a bad game every now and then, and like you are going to have the least bad games of like 90% of the defenses in the league.
Yeah,
It's like I trust you, I trust the Colts running game, I trust like I'm just trying to think off the top of my head some, and I'm kind of blanking. Well, I don't know if I trust the Cleveland defense just because like
I trust the Vikings
I don't
wide
know.
receiver room.
Yes, I trust the Vikings wide receiver room, like stuff like that. Exactly. Um, and meanwhile, Jaden Daniels,
Oh,
in the late stages of a very bad loss, it was already a bad loss. There was already like pretty much no mathematical chance they could come back against the Seattle Seahawks.
yeah.
Uh, Jaden Daniels, I believe they said it was a arm dislocation.
I think
Arm
elbow.
just yes, I believe his arm just bends a way it should not, and while they say he can theoretically come back, he does not need surgery. I think that basically marks the end of his season and kind of the end of the Commander season at
I
3-6.
think that ends the Commander season because it was a brutal loss. They have strong teams they're still against, and I think that's done, especially if you want to rehab that arm. Like you could rehab it to play again, and then you could rehab it to win again. And here's some of the teams they have left: the Lions, Broncos, Vikings, and Eagles twice.
Mm.
That's
Mm. Mm-hmm.
those are strong offenses and defenses, and I wouldn't go like if you're not feeling 100% for those games, which you're not going to be attending most of them anyway, if any of them, you're gonna you're gonna make things so much worse. Just
Right.
throwing that out there.
Honestly, right. Another game where I don't have that much to say on the actual game, other than the Seahawks offense feels
They look
simultaneously
good.
very stoppable and unstoppable because they score 4 touchdowns in the first half and then kind of just go into cruise control the rest of the way. And I'm
Yeah,
like, does uh you know, they scored 28 going or yeah, going into half. No, they had 31 because they also got the field goal. And then they kind of just do nothing for the rest of the game and it's like, well, you didn't need to do anything. So I guess it's fine. I believe there wasn't an incomplete pass by Sam Darnold until the second half. But here's my one take from this game, and it's going to sound kind of crass and rude, but like, I don't think of the things that could have happened to Jaden Daniels this year, this kind of was the best case scenario. Like, I feel like, the inklings that this was going to be a season from hell were kind of like sort of starting to permeate early into this season.
mm-hmm.
And I just keep thinking about how Robert Griffin, like, again, it looked like the Commanders had figured out the next 10 years of their franchise when Robert Griffin III was running the read option and just like completely smoking offenses. Then his knee buckles, and then it's just over. And he tries to rush back. He messes up his knee in the regular season, tries to play in the playoffs, tears his ACL, tries to come back too soon, and he just never really recovers. And I'm like, in terms of like if this season was going to be decided by Daniels having a bad injury that kind of like effectively ends the season, a arm pop on his non-throwing arm, which I believe it was, um, is the better case scenario because at least it wasn't his legs, at least it wasn't his knee, at least it wasn't a severe concussion. This is theoretically more recoverable from than other season-ending injuries, and it just lets you say clearly we tried to jump, much like the Texans, we kind of tried to jump the gun on the whole rebuild thing, and probably we're a little too big for our britches. Let's take a step back and figure out like what are the positions we need to get core players at to sort of go forward. Like it's not a fun place to be as a fan, especially because last year was so intoxicating, such like a feel good story. But like it's recovered again. This team
It's
was always in rebuild,
yeah,
and it's okay.
it's health
That
versus if you push it like I'm not saying last season was a fluke, but like if you do push things too harsh right now, you're gonna screw up a lot more than just one season where you can just take the capital that you get from it, make some quality picks for weakening positions, and
exactly.
etc. etc. Words, words, words.
Yeah, it's just a reminder that this team still is in a rebuild, even if like
Mm-hmm.
even if like you got to jump the gun a little bit and see like the best case scenario at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
Um,
Notes
so a
time.
few notable. Yes. Okay, fine. I'm glad I didn't sort of over egg the pudding and like go in my whole rant
I'll
about how I feel like the trade deadline is overrated and like it's not going to be that
you you
interesting.
saved yourself from eating so
Yeah.
much
I would have
crows.
had well, no, because exactly. And like I'm not a I don't like the taste of crow. It's gamey and sad. It makes you think things. Um but like yeah, I kind
And
of
they'll
saved my bacon
remember.
on that one.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
them.
yeah, their brothers and sisters will rise against you. But like, yeah, everyone was talking about how this was going to be like an NBA level trade deadline. A lot of big names were going to move, a lot of pieces were going to get moved around. And then you're hearing names like Waddle and you're hearing Brees Hall, and you're like, all right, all right. And then a couple actually huge seismic trades do happen. The obvious sort of big one is Sauce Gardner ends up
Yep,
getting traded to the Indianapolis Colts for 2 first-round picks
they're playing to
and
win.
Adonai Mitchell to bounce out the contracts. I I'm curious what you think about this trade.
I Sauce hasn't had the best year, but I think this is very much a strong playing to win from Indianapolis,
Mhm.
where the the eggs are in the basket, and they're predicting that a bunch are gonna hatch.
Exactly.
I think.
If the Yeah,
I mean, it was a corner their weakest spot on the field. I would say no. However,
it wasn't great, but it wasn't completely
I think
insurmountable.
I think Sauce could help out, but I think it's going to take a week or two, if I'm being honest, before he can show up again. Because it's he was just on the Jets for a bunch of years, and he's getting transferred to a very different team.
Hmm.
So I think it's going to take I think they probably will start him right off the bat, but I think he's good enough that that last stretch where they play 49ers, Jaguars twice, Seahawks, I think that's where he'll be good enough that it's like, all right, now this is the kid that we wanted to put in the draft, like we drafted from
Hmm.
the Jets. And speaking of the Jets, they seem to be selling the farm this year. I think
Yes.
they're they're fighting for first overall now, and it's kind of distinctly clear. Even they were on the bye this week, but even still, technically being undefeated, I guess, from their last win or their first win,
Mhm.
it's um
Yes.
it's one
He
of
was one
those.
of 2 major Jets players who got traded. It was him and Quinion Williams who went to the Dallas Cowboys.
I don't think that's enough
I
to
do
say.
love, yes, I do love that Jerry Jones goes, I got a big trade in the works, just you wait. And then they get Logan Wilson, who is currently a benched linebacker for the Bengals. And then quietly they go, oh, so we did this, which is a slightly more interesting trade.
If he's not even a starter for the Bengals, why is he your
Right. But
big
it's also
man?
hard to, yeah, I'm like, are you not starting him because you're trying to trade him or because, it's a toxic situation? The Quinion Williams trade is at least interesting because if the main selling point for getting rid of Micah Parsons was we'd rather get more assets to rebuild the run defense, I guess that's something. Like,
Is that
at least he's not again, it's not a Micah Parsons level. Like when you're doing the whole, we can use these draft kicks to get even more great players. I'm like, yeah, but you're not going to get anyone as good as Micah Parsons. But at least this is something. Um,
it
yeah,
is something.
I understand. I understand the Quinion Williams trade because he's a little older and he's been a little disgruntled for a while for the Jets.
Yeah.
I guess I don't get why they move on from Sauce Gardner because it's like, again, you didn't move on from Garrett Wilson. You didn't ultimately move on from Brees Hall despite him asking for a trade. And it's like, these, theoretically, those two in Sauce are like the 3 young guys who you're kind of building this around. The idea of like, you guys are going to have, as much as this sucks, as brutal as this, like, sort of fallow period for this franchise is, we'll do right by you. We'll give you your money. You'll get to be New York stars. And like when we finally get it together, you guys will reap the benefit of that. So I'm a little confused as to the direction of the franchise moving off him now. For the Colts, I don't know. It makes sense in the sense of like
I think it's a
if the
I think it is the most reasonable quick fix from a non-contender contender team
contender to a contender, yes.
to a contender without like I think 2 first rounds is rather steep, and that's kind of going back into the value and worth versus expertise. But
Right.
if you're looking I would say he's probably one of the better, if not the best corner that you can easily get from a non-contender team. Um, but if you want to like I'm trying to think the best way to word this. They would have they could have given more for worse, or they would
Mm.
have to try and fight with another contender team where if that deal does not automatically get shut down right off the bat, you're fight like you are going to lose something a lot worth a lot more than two draft picks just for a corner, and I think that would be way too much of a price.
Right. I mean, yeah, I guess I can quibble about the price because my stance is like the only positions I'm super comfortable trading two first round picks are wide receiver, defensive end, and quarterback. I think those are the three that matter more than every other position on the field. And like, and then it's like I'd be or if you're getting an emphatic, undeniable top five guy at the position. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if this is for Patrick Surtain, I'm like, I can easily talk
That
myself into two first round
oh
picks for that.
easily
But like Sauce, he's had highs where he's been a top five cornerback, but he's also had lows where he falls down to like 10, 15 worse range. He's had his ups and downs as his career's gone on. But for a team that is more or less their philosophy statement, their mission statement for the last, what, almost decade now since Andrew Luck retired has been if we just get the right veteran quarterback in, we have enough talent around us to be a moderately serious contender. And this is the first time where it actually feels like you achieve that, then I feel like it's hard not to justify this if
yeah.
the opportunity arises.
This
Because like
is
again, you're not going to go for a quarterback in these next two drafts. You're more or less committed to Daniel Jones now for at least 2 or 3
yeah.
years. So those first round picks are meaningless.
That and this season, like they had such a hot start. They're at this such bizarre spot of just like, oh, we're like the top team. And
Mm.
like I think they're even shocking themselves in the office and stuff like that with how good they are this season. Of like you have this such small window of it has to be just this year because next year the way schedules line up and stuff, you're going to be put against a very good conference and other better teams based off of your position where they just it's almost luck kind of helped them out on this side of things.
Mm.
And
Agreed.
that's when it's going to get I think this is their one shot and based off of how the rest of their division slash league or like conference is playing, they can make a solid push for the playoffs, get lucky, and make it a little bit before they fight like a real top tier contender. Like it weirds me out to say this, but like the Patriots or
Mm. Mm. Um,
Broncos again. Did they
well,
play
I will
this
say
season?
to that note,
Oh yeah, they
a
played
lot of
week two.
a lot of people got on the Patriots for not making a trade at this deadline, but I'm honestly impressed by the strength they
I
showed
don't
because again, it's
I
like
don't think they needed to.
well, exactly. The team is much better than we thought it was, and like all of their free agent signings have paid off. But it really is like I think when you look at the Texans and you look at the Commanders, two teams who felt like they were probably a little closer than they were because they got the quarterback right, cashed in a lot of chips, and then realized there were a lot of holes on their team. It's like, no, sometimes restraint is the best thing to do during a rebuild. Like, if this is a rebuilding team and you're already 7-2 or 6-2, um, like, you don't, don't save some of the chips, save some of the powder. Other trades that were interesting: the Eagles double dipped Jalen Phillips and Jair Alexander, two oft injured, high upside guys. Always fun investments for the Eagles.
I like that. I
I
like
really
that move.
like yes, I really like Rashid Shaheed, someone who was being looked at by the Bills, going
I
to the Seattle Seahawks.
I like that from for like a career and talent standpoint.
Right.
I was in possible negotiations with him about him in fantasy and him going to the Seahawks. I was just like, oh, your production value is going to go down.
Mm,
But
yes,
I
but
think from a
again,
talent
I love.
perspective, I think he's
Mm,
a great. I think it's a great position. Like great addition to the
Yes.
Seahawks.
Again, I quietly made the Seahawks my favorite NFC team on the grounds of like Clint Kubiak is the most ethical offensive coordinator I know in terms of like that man just wants to sling it around the yard. He wants to throw it deep. And sometimes we'll score 4 touchdowns and a half. Sometimes we'll have 2 interceptions. But like we're not going out, we're going
We're
out swinging.
it's
And I
gonna
respect the fuck
exclusively
out of
be
that.
swinging.
Yes, I respect the shit out of that. And then Jacoby Myers from the Raiders to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Baffling on the Raiders end because they have a dearth of wide receiving talent, and somewhat surprising for the Jaguars because I guess Brian Thomas Jr. has been out for a couple games with injury, and apparently Travis Hunter is having problems with his knee now. So, like, we will have to wait and see. I don't know. It simultaneously makes sense and doesn't because it's like this guy, already becomes the adult in the room for the wide receiving room. He's the oldest member of the team. He has the most reliable catch to drop percentage. But, like, again, it's the frustrating thing of Trevor Lawrence of, like, how much. At some point, it's a used car, babes. We can't keep pouring money into it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
how many more wide receivers do we need to get?
yeah.
I say, as Bills fans are like, how the fuck? Why can't we get Chris Olave?
That would have been the best case scenario, but yeah, no, it's another weapon for Trevor to throw to a couple times, but also miss. And I'm not. It's not really a trade that's like groundbreaking on my radar.
Mhm.
All right.
But wait, should we briefly talk about the egregious trade that has completely ruined my fantasy this season?
No, because that's a next week problem technically.
I got plans that are in motion that the haters are going to try and stop. So don't even worry about it.
I'm I'm curious what your plans are.
I will tell you off mic as to
Hell
make sure Tom doesn't stop me.
yeah. Hell yeah. Oh wait, is it the one you already talked about?
Oh, yeah, it's that one.
Okay. Anyway, question of the week: how many losses does a team need at this point for you to consider them not playoff bound?
That's an interesting question. Obviously, a
Because
lot of it
it's
is like
halfway.
context
So,
specific.
like, I would say halfway through the season, the in the world of theoretics, every single team has had a 50-50 chance to win and to lose at like for every single game. So, but being at the halfway point, their average is probably going to stay similar-ish, give or take.
Mm,
So,
okay, I think I know the answer to this.
I think
All right.
I think if you have, I'm gonna be a little safe about it, and I'm gonna say if you have six, if you have six losses by
Mm,
this point in the season, I'm gonna hedge my bets that you are not making it to the playoffs, and that has a little bit to do with there's a bunch of 3 and 2 loss teams still hanging around in both conferences. But I'm gonna
mm.
hedge my bets and say six is that threshold of you're probably already out. You can make like a push, but depending on your strength of schedule, that push is going to be odds are unsuccessful.
Yeah. I'm going to be slightly more generous and say 7 because I feel like sometimes you can sell me on a 6. Because I look at the Bengals right now, like, I look at some of the teams right now who have 6
Okay,
losses,
yeah,
and I can at least see a framing device in which they can rally.
so let's go with the Bengals specifically. So, um, yeah, 6 losses. They have still. Oh, the Bengals had a bye this week or next week. Did not know that off the top of my head, even though I wrote it down earlier. Um, they have Steelers, Patriots, Ravens, Bills, Ravens, Dolphins, Cardinals, Browns. I think Steelers might not swing in their favor and they go 1-1. Patriots and Bills are a little too dominant on offense for the Bengals defense to keep up. Ravens 1-1, and at my point, what is that? Like an additional four losses, and when was the last time you saw a team with like 10 losses make it to the playoffs?
Right. Like I know we've had a couple under 500 teams make the playoffs now, but there's like a limit to that.
It's
Even in bad divisions, there's a limit to
yeah, and they're not in the worst division. So
that. Mm.
if it was like previous seasons and usually typical NFC South, where it's teams fighting for the divisional spot with eight and nine records and stuff like that, different story. But they're three in their division, and while the Steelers do have only two wins against, like two wins up on them, I think that's how the math works. It's still, my lack of faith is there.
Mhm.
But yeah, seven. If you look at the teams that have 7 wins, you can almost guarantee they are not making it in. Dolphins, Jets, Browns, Vegas, Commanders.
Um, right. And yeah, because let's see, at this point in the season, like we're in the week 9, week 10 range. It's like at that point, assuming you haven't had your bye, you've played 10 games. Literally, you have a chance to go 5-5. If you already have 7 losses, you would be 3-7. It to at least get to 9-7, you would have to effectively win out. And I'm just like, I don't like any scenario where any team, especially in this year where there's so much chaos and so much parity,
Yeah,
where you basically have to go undefeated the rest of the season. Like
yeah. I
at
think
some point, it just becomes a math problem where it's like,
it's like I started off this question where, like theoretically, every team has a 50-50 chance of winning. They're either going to be on the team that wins, or going to be on the team that loses. Ties are bullshit. Um,
mm,
and if you can't get that 50% average to be like considered a top player, like a top team, I think that's like, for example, the Falcons. They Let's say they win five more games. Um, they That puts them at 8 wins. So they would
mm,
have effectively an 8-9 record, and they are the third best in their division. Where if it stays true, it puts the Bucks at 11, and it puts the Panthers at 10 wins, respectively, ahead of them.
mm.
Yeah, law of averages, math, things like that.
Right. It really just becomes, yeah, at some point, I mean, that's the problem the Bills are running into with the Patriots, where it's like, it becomes a math problem of like, all right, realistically, how many games can the Patriots lose and how many games can you realistically win? It's like, at some, if there was an infinite number of weeks, like if the NFL season literally just went on forever until the Bills surpassed the Patriots, at some point it would probably happen,
It
at
would.
least on paper, right?
Yeah.
But like, no, you only have those 18 games, and if you fuck up one or two at an inconvenient time, there's not enough road to fix it.
And there's the whole just strength of schedule concept against them. Because, let's see, Patriots have Bucks, but they also have Jets, Bengals, Giants, Bills, Ravens, Jets, Dolphins. Wow, that is a delightful strength of remaining schedule from the halfway point. They are fighting the doggest of shits. Bills, on the other hand, Dolphins, Bucks, Texans, Steelers, Bengals, Patriots, Browns, Eagles, Jets. There is three very solid defenses on that list. Two, I would say, are on the upper side of questionable, and the Bengals and Jets and Browns. Browns has Miles Garrett and not much else. There, I said it.
Well,
So like strength of schedule wise, I could see them do like winning the vast majority of these games. However, can they outwin the Patriots' losses or the Patriots' wins?
Mm.
Shrugs. Anyway, next week it's the old Week 10 bye week.
Yes, who do we got this week,
It's
actually?
typically no one special. It's nothing special. It's Tennessee, which, I have no advice. I have no opinions. Take the week
Uh,
off.
yes.
Um, Cincinnati, take the week off and hire a brand new defensive coordinator and defensive staff in entirety.
The problem is you already made Luana Rumo your scapegoat, so you can't. See, that was always the problem with firing him. It's like he's the one thing your defense has had going for it consistently. If you throw him under the bus, what are you going to do? Fire another guy?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you should, but you're probably not.
uh, Chiefs, meh. I don't want to give any formal advice to because, like, I guess unobjective, it's like, all right, they just have to really hone in and make up for these flops. Kelsey and Mahomes have not been clicking as well as they have in past years,
Mhm.
but they need to really fine tune, hone in, get these people, like, get these small receivers like Worthy just able to break hits. They don't need them to like tank them or anything. They just need to break them. Um,
Right. It's hoping that the offense hasn't like already peaked too early, where it's like they've used all their best cards.
yeah,
Because again, there are moments where this offense looks like what everyone's wanted to look like for years,
and then other
but
times
like,
it's
yeah, you're like, oh right, this team can't run the ball.
yeah. And then the last team that has a bye is the Dallas Cowboys. I don't care what they do.
Uh, win games. I'm very long.
They're
Like,
they're they're low, and it's not even like a cute low of like, oh, we're 5-3-1. We're second in our division. They are still technically second in the division, but it's by a 4 game gap.
right, and again, it's a team that I've like moderately had compliments for this season of like, oh, they could be a wild card team. They could be sneaky competitive because of their offense, and it's like, okay,
Ah,
but if you're giving up 27 points to the Jacoby Brissett's Arizona Cardinals, then you're not going to make it. It doesn't even
yeah.
matter if you make the playoffs. There's no amount of scoring. And again, it's interesting because it's like this and the Broncos game. It's like these are the first 2 games this season where Dak Prescott hasn't looked very good. And it's like if you need your quarterback, again, weirdly a Bills problem, if you need your quarterback to be perfect in every single game, then you don't have a good. It doesn't matter how good the quarterback is.
All right. Here is the list of teams that so let's say Eagles, Lions, Bucks, and Seahawks are the ones in their divisions. Here's a list of teams that the Cowboys would need to do significantly better than in order to get that one of 3 remaining wildcard slots. Bears, Packers, Vikings, Panthers, Rams, 49ers, and would also have to outpace the Falcons, Cardinals, and technically Washington, but I have a lot less faith in Washington from this point on, if I'm being honest. So you have to basically beat out almost your entire conference to get that point. So I think, your season's done.
Yeah,
Go and
they
push.
they are the one testing me in terms of like how many losses, and that's where how many losses becomes more of a nebulous like abstract concept of vibes and fields. Like where you're like, when can we reasonably scratch this team off our list? You know, when do we put this team on the bad list? And I'm like, okay, 5 losses at this point isn't insurmountable, but when they've been like this, with the schedule you have left and the teams you need to beat, yeah, it's kind of insurmountable. God, they really have lost all to the NFC, huh?
Yeah, no, it's
I'll be
it's pretty
damned.
much it. That's
We
they
again in the spirit of like the doldrums of like late cold autumn. we are getting to the point of the year where I just forget a lot of schedule stuff. Where I'm like, wait,
Like
oh, that team already played that. That team's still gonna play that team.
in terms of exclusively wins, not losses, they are tied with the Commanders and Cardinals and Falcons, and the only two teams in their entire conference that are have technically less wins is Giants and Saints. Just throwing that out there. Anyway, biggest game of the week is probably going to be Green Bay versus Philly. Previous playoff game, a previous technically opening season game, but also the first Brazil game.
And a sort of rivalry of terse words due to the tush push.
Yeah, the ones that
Yeah. So for
proposed
people who
against the
are
push, the ones
yes,
that do the push best.
yes, for people who aren't in the loop, the Green Bay Packers kind of let themselves be the face of the anti-tush movement. As one fan said, I can't believe we've become the Drake of the NFL because we refuse to draft large defensive tackle. I am
Yeah,
curious to see how and knowing Nick Sirianni being a somewhat wrathful, spiteful guy, which you can't say isn't emblematic of the Philadelphian soul. I am curious. That's the thing. I'm like, is this guy a good head coach? I have no idea, but you can't deny that he fits the culture.
he
Um,
100% fits the culture. He is, and I mean, he's not. He's just a guy. He's a character. I don't know what else I need to say or how to say
yes,
it.
but exactly. But anywho, yeah, I'm excited for this game. I think it's again after a disappointing display from the Packers. I need to see them give me anything in this game
Yeah,
before I'm willing to put them on the same level as Eagles. Because again, I'm fine seeing the Eagles kind of be weird and weird vibes and like kind of phone it in during the regular season and AJ Brown on another existential crises. Because at the bare minimum, I've seen them win a Super Bowl and get as close to winning a Super Bowl as they can without actually winning it.
yeah.
Like
They've done both of
I'm
those.
willing to give them a lot of it. Because even in that year where they ended up pooping themselves against the Braves, I'm like, all right, but I don't feel bad giving them the out. Like,
Yeah,
you know, because even then it's like, well, I know they'll fix it. This season didn't work out, but they'll fix it next season. Uh, I need to see something from the Packers before I really commit
I need to sign.
to anything.
I can agree with
Yes,
that.
exactly.
I need to sign a faith, and I think it's going to be watching um, Jordan Love versus a very sturdy like defensive line and a pair of very talented corners
Hmm.
that I think is going to be. I think that's going to put him on quite a watch. Anyway, shall we hit
Yes,
our don't sleep on games?
absolutely. You picked probably the
I
game. Honestly, the game that I feel is like the low key game of the week in terms of like the 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock slots.
Man, it's one of those that should have been flexed to a different time slot. Patriots Buccaneers, strong.
Yes,
Two of the top. I think the top two are they technically the top two teams of each conference. A a very plausible um like Super Bowl matchup. This one being at the 1 o'clock slot kind of seems like an insult. At least give it the four, but
right. Exact. Yeah, give it the
give it a
none of the primetime games wanted to get flexed, so we're giving it like prime television time.
I like it better than Steelers Chargers if I'm being honest based off of this season.
Mm-hmm.
I also like it better than
Um,
Raiders Broncos.
yes, two of the quietly strongest defenses in the league with exciting, dynamic quarterbacks. And fortunately, while Bucky Irving is still inexplicably out, most of the rest of the Buck skill position players are well. Oh wait, Chris Godwin and
Mike
well,
Evans.
Emeka Ibuka's healthy, and that's what really matters because he's my
It's
guy. I've always believed in him.
I also think it's I think it's very balanced of their like receiver talents of because Godwin and Evans are like who knows what. And then there's the inverse of the Patriots with like Stephon Diggs, Booty, and stuff like that, where it's just like these are probably equalish talents. They're
Mm.
and Drake May and Baker Mayfield are both like, I'm gonna throw this ball quarterbacks. Like they can make runs, but they are, I would say, preferably throwing quarterbacks. So
Yes.
it's this seemed like a softball answer for me. And you picked Arizona and Seattle.
Yes. Don't look now. We are inexplicably in the exact same fucking space we were with the NFC West as we were last year, where every team basically has the same record. Every team theoretically has a chance to make a big move, and like it is. And the other big game of this week is San Francisco, LA. So basically, this will be the week to decide who are the real contenders and who are the pretenders in the NFC West. This game excuse me, this game in particular interests me because Jacoby Brissett's coming off a relatively impressive game against the Dallas Cowboys, and this is going to be one of the harder defenses Seattle's had to go against since their last matchup. Arizona's defense has really tightened up. For all the you like Gannon now, but like for all the guff he gets and for all the
I wouldn't
headaches his
say
team has created.
I wouldn't say I like him. However, I do like the "Where are my killers" at speech.
Well, yes, right. You like the bits, so you give him like a gentleman's pass, I suppose. But anywho, I am interested in this game because I do think it is going to outside. Well, I guess the Rams' defense is probably the best in the conference or the division, but it'll be interesting to see if this sort of high flying streak the Seahawks offense has been on finally meets its match. And I do think this is going to be these two games are going to be really big bar setters to decide like the hierarchy of the NFC West, and by extension, arguably one of the favorites for the Super Bowl. It like obviously
It's an
until
impressive
Stafford
Seahawks
retired,
class.
yes. Basically, it decides if the Seahawks get to be a part of like the conversation or not for me. Because the Rams are going to be in the conversation until Matthew Stafford retires. I've been very clear on that stance. But like, I really want to believe in the Seahawks team, and I just need to see some really good, high quality division wins to feel absolutely certain on them.
I can respect that.
Shall we wrap it up for the week?
Yeah, send us home.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as those last couple leaves fall and we hit those doldrums of the fall while we wait for Thanksgiving to hit and the holiday season to begin, there is only one thing you need to worry about. It's not
Dinosaur
school.
attacks.
Well, yeah, I mean, you just have to have that and volcano insurance. You should just have those on lock. Like, I felt like I didn't even need to say that. But you don't need to worry about flu season. You don't need to worry about school. You don't need to worry about the creeping specter of fascism as the government continues to be shut down. You got to worry about football. This is the month that will make or break franchises, that'll make or break legacies, that'll make or break coaching careers, that will set the terms for how the rest of the season is going to go. So grab some nachos, shotgun a beer, and get ready for some goddamn football.